Hello everyone, this is Jennifer McGuire and I am a guest on Ellen Hudson for her celebration of the 12 Tags of Christmas with a Feminine Twist. I love this every year. It's so much fun to see what people do. I'm going to be doing some texture stenciling using some fun Hero Arts products. This also has a flap that opens up so you can put a message inside. So let's get started. I have a piece of white cardstock that's 3 1/8 of an inch wide and it's 5 1/2 inches tall, but I'm going to trim that down. I'm just not quite sure yet how tall I want it to be. I'm taping it shut so that I can work on it without it trying to open up on me. This is a Hero Arts stencil. You can see I've used this stencil many times. It's great for the technique that I'm going to be showing you. Any kind of stencil with a lot of open area to it would work well with this technique. So I'm using some micropore tape to tape this together so it doesn't shift while I'm working, but you can use any kind of tape for that. I'm using Gathered Twigs Distress Ink. This is my favorite brown distress ink, and I'm using a mini ink blending tool to work this ink over the opening of the stencil. Now when I'm doing this, I always start on the stencil and pull the color in towards the paper. The reason I do this is I get this great dark edge. It almost looks like a shadow and it takes no effort at all. I really want to be sure here to keep the ink that I put on here very light because we're going to go and apply more ink over it in a moment, and I want to be able to see the texture we add. I am now going to add this Dreamweaver's stencil screen over my stencil. This is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of screen that's perfect for stenciling techniques to get a fun texture. Now I am going to tape this on all 4 sides because I really want to keep this screen still so that I keep my pattern as I add ink over it. Now this product is super inexpensive. It's only like a couple bucks. That makes it even better because it's a great way to really stretch your stencils. So now I'm taking that same color and I am just dabbing this on with my ink blending tool. And I'm being pretty firm here because I want to make sure the color gets through the screen. And I'm just going to keep dabbing this on. I don't go in a circular motion here because I don't want to shift the screen. And check it out, when you peel it off you get this fun texture. Just a great way to stretch your stamps with an inexpensive product. Now you could have used any inks here. I used Distress Ink and Ink Blending Tool because it's so smooth to use with stencils, but you could have used anything. So now I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. I want to trim this so that it looks like the reindeer is standing on the bottom of the little folded card that we have here. Now I have this Hero Art stamp that I've used way too many times. You can see it's all inked up. But I'm going to stamp some little ornaments hanging off our reindeer's antlers here. So I'm stamping these with 3 shades of Hero Art Shadow Inks. The first was Bubblegum. This is Soft Pool, and actually it ended up being too light. I wanted something a little darker, so I'm going to double stamp it. So I stamped it twice on top of each other. And the last color I'm using is Lime Green. And I'm just stamping these kind of in a staggered look underneath the antlers. So now I'm going to use my T-ruler and my Multiliner COPIC black pen of 0.3, that's my favorite one of all, and just drawing some straight lines to make the little strings to hang the ornaments from his antlers. Now this could be done with a regular ruler, but boy does that T-ruler help out quite a bit. And then I'm just going to draw little bows at the top here. I think you could probably have left it plain and simple, but I decided to add little bows here. Now I know Rudolph is supposed to have a red nose, but I decided since this is supposed to be a feminine tag, I'd give him a hot pink nose. I don't know, I thought it would be fun. So I used my RV17 Copic marker to color it, and then I dabbed it with my finger just to make it a little bit lighter, and I'm just going to add that on there. And that will dry and stay perfectly shiny and bright pink. So that's a fun way to add a little interest to a gem, is to color it with your Copic markers. So now I'm adding some adhesive to the back of this and putting it onto a tag here. I've cut my own tag because I didn't want a hole in the top because I plan to glue this on the front of a gift instead of kind of have it hanging off. This is kind of like the bow or the centerpiece of the gift itself. So once I have this on here, I wanted to add a little bit of something above and below that folded panel. I wanted something pink, and I didn't have any pink cardstock to perfectly match the pink ink that I used for the ornament. So I rubbed some of that same bubblegum ink onto some white cardstock, and I'm cutting a few thin strips with my trimmer, and I'm going to glue one of these above the folded piece and one below. Now here's a little tip. I usually cut 3 or 4 thin strips, and then I pick the 2 that are closest to the same width. That way I don't have to measure it and I can just do it quickly. I usually lay 2 of the strips down next to each other, run adhesive across the back of both of them at the same time, peel them apart, and then run my fingers along the edges to rub away any of the extra adhesive that sticks out, and then I stick them onto my card. These little thin strips are a great way to use up some scraps, and you don't have to have a big pink piece to go behind the entire folded panel that we have here. I just make it look like I have it there. Once I'm done, I just flip it over and I use my scissors to cut off anything that's hanging off the edge of that blue tag that we've created. So now I needed a sentiment on the bottom there, so I'm stamping this with VersaMark ink. This is from that same Hero Art set that the ornaments came from. And now I am adding some Hero Art's white embossing powder. I love their white embossing powder. I think it's nice and crisp white against the colored background. Zapping it with my Hero Art heat gun, and there we have our sentiment on the bottom. Now you may have noticed that I got some extra ink underneath his antler and above his ear. I did that with my finger actually. Now I was not going to start this over, so what I do is I just scratch the ink away softly with a craft knife, and then I buff it with an eraser, and there you go. Nobody will ever know that I had some ink there that wasn't supposed to be there. Now I did decide to put a little snow behind him using some of the little dots that are in that Hero Art stamp set. At first I thought, uh-oh, this looks like he's an underwater reindeer with bubbles coming up, but I think in the end it turned out okay, that these are just some fun kind of snowflakes falling down in the background. Oh, and by the way, I used the Hero Art Soft Pool for that. Now I decided I wanted a little shimmer and shine on this, so I'm using my clear Wink of Stella just to color in these ornaments, and I put a pretty thick layer of this shimmer on there so that it would really stand out, since they're the only things on it that I plan to put the shimmer on. And by the way, if your Wink of Stella seems to be running kind of dry, just go ahead and add a little water to the inside of it. There's usually like a glumped up shimmer in the bottom that when you add water it kind of rejuvenates it, and you can get a longer life out of your Wink of Stella. Oh, I also decided to add a little bit of the shimmer to the pink strips, just for some fun. Now I wanted to add a twine bow to his neck, and I always use the Reindeer Multi-Medium for holding that in place because it's a very strong adhesive, and one little dot will hold that bow in place. I'm putting an acrylic block on top of that so that it kind of holds it in place while we take some glossy accents and cover our ornaments so that they dry with some fun dimension. By the way, with your glossy accents, always be sure to squeeze the extra in the nozzle out into a baby wipe so that there's just air in the nozzle, and that will keep it from getting clogged in the future. So there you have a fun textured stenciling technique, and also a way to create a tag with a flap opening. If you have questions, please head over to ellenhudson.com, and thanks so much for stopping by.